Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth beta and the second pass for the Restoration Druid. In this video, I'm going to go over any talent adjustments, spells or abilities lost or gained, things kept from the Legion artifacts or legendaries, new graphics, and a brief overview of the War Mode talents, and finally any GCD changes mixed in there. Spoiler alert, for Restoration Druid, there really isn't any. There will be no true gameplay in this series, so consider this more of a one-man podcast walkthrough primer of what your spec is like going from one expansion, Legion, to the next, Battle for Azeroth. The second pass testing VOD is linked down below in the description box over on Twitch. If you want to see all the nitty-gritty I get into with chat when we're discussing about this spec. And then, of course, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, stuff like that, feedback, leave it down in the comment section down below. That's what it's there for. If you are returning to this video and you already are subscribed, consider hitting that bell icon. That is the true subscription button on YouTube now. Or, of course, if you are new and enjoy my ramblings and want to keep up to date on all the stuff that I have in the pipeline, the sub button and the bell icon is there for you as well. So, the Restoration Druid doesn't have a ton of changes. They have notable adjustments from Legion into BFA, but overall, you're not playing a brand new spec. I think the most notable stuff is the things that have been given back to the Restoration Druid, and then a little bit of what's been taken away. So, to go over all of that, Healing Touch, gone. Healing Touch has been removed from your toolkit completely. So if you enjoyed Healing Touch, well, it's just gone. To make up for that change, however, they did take 5 seconds off of the cooldown on Swift Mend. More on this, of course, later on when different talent combinations come into play there. But Swift Mend now is a 25-second cooldown, down from 30. Additionally, there is still the Forced Life Bloom, which I will show here. We looked at this in the first pass, of course. Now, if Life Bloom has 4 seconds or less remaining and you refresh Life Bloom, it will force the Life Bloom to bloom versus it just falling off normally. This, of course, is to help with the pandemic effect because you're adding more duration to the Life Bloom, which delays the natural bloom effect, but for a pure extra little burst of healing, you can sort of time your Life Bloom with weak auras or tummy wens, or if you have any hot bars, you track your heals over time on targets, you can still totally do this at or below 4 seconds. You will force Life Bloom to bloom. Additionally, Soothe, which removes a enrage effect on the target, I guess it's all enrage effects on the target, is an instant 10-second cooldown. Hunters do have this in the form of pets, but I do believe the Soothe version is an exotic pet. There is a Dispel on other pets that other hunters can have, but I'm not entirely sure if it's the exact same mechanic as Soothe, which Feral, Balance, and Restoration Druids have. Guardian does not. You also have Hibernate has come back, if you didn't see this before. It is a cast time sleep on Beasts and Dragonkin. You can only have one target slept at a time, however, but your old school CC comes back. So where's my Bind Elemental, Blizzard? Yes, it's only 3 minutes into the video, 4 minutes into the video, and Bay is already talking about Shaman. It happens. Also, Rebirth has had some tweaks, so your battle res now goes back to being a 2-second cast time reduced by haste, but it is 100% health, 20% mana. The other 2 battle reses, DK's cost runic power, is instant, but is only 60-20, and the cast time on the Soulstone is like 3 seconds, also 60-20, but you can, of course, put Soulstone on before combat. So slight tweaks to all 3 of the combat reses. Hunters lost combat res. So it's only Druids, DKs, Warlocks are all a little different. Regrowth no longer has any of the weird crit scaling anymore. That has all been pushed over into the Abundance talent if you would like the crit scaling on your regrowths. And Tranquility, let's go over to the target dummies real quick. Tranquility is no longer be able to cast while moving, which, you know, that's saw that coming. That was an artifact trait perk, right? The biggest change with Tranquility, and I would argue one of the biggest changes that impacts how Resto Druids are going to heal and even some build options with the Restoration Druid, is Tranquility now is back to being a heal over time. So it has the initial pulse of healing each time it hits, but then it stacks a hot up to 5 that lasts 8 seconds shortly after you finish casting. And while this hot is active, any other effects that scale from Harmony, which of course is your mastery, will add additional healing into all of your other healing on those targets, because Trank counts as a hot now. So you can have 9 total heals over time on a target if you want to count them all. So if this ever actually works in a situation, of course, but you can have Cenarian Ward, you can have Cultivation proc, you can have Spring Blossoms, you can have Germination and Rejuvenation. You can, of course, have Regrowth, Life Bloom, Wild Growth, and your Tranquility Hot. So you can have 9 stacks of Harmony. How that'll actually ever work, you'll probably only average maybe 6 or 7 in a crazy situation, but that all does stack within that time. So you can do one of these. You can stack quite a number. Damn it. There we go. The Wild Growth did not hit all this dummy. There it goes. So you can have quite a large number of hots on a target, of course. More on how ridiculously silly your throughput healing can be on the Resto Druid on that. I mean, I'm going to turn off these personal resource display. I had this on for Feral Druid. Turn that off. That's a little bit silly. So, outside of that, those are all the big baseline changes. That's pretty much it. You are a heal over time healer. Everything you do now is all throughput-based hot healing, except Swift Mending and the hooks with talents therein for Swift Mend, or of course the forcing your Life Bloom to heal for extra pure single target, right? Those extra little bursts. Now, that being said, there is... Oh, I guess my caveat here on my notes is that, yes, Tranquility scales with Mastery now. If you didn't put that together, I didn't notice it because I had that as an asterisk additional piece here. But yes, to backtrack a little bit. So, overall, though, the only other talent change you had that'll change how your build works out, Displacer Beast is gone. It is now Tiger Dash. So, movement-wise... Dash itself got a little bit of a nerf. It's a 2-minute cooldown, down from 3 minutes. It's 60% for 10 seconds. Or you could upgrade it to Tiger Dash, which is a 200% sprint for 4 seconds, which gradually reduces over the 4 seconds on a 45-second cooldown. So to give you a little bit of a visual, there is a picture we did for testing this when we were doing Guardian. The blue marker to blue training dummy is a 25-yard wild charge. The red to orange marker, that is how far you will go in a Tiger Dash. Quite a bit further. And of course, to see it in action, if you're not in cat form, this of course is on the global cooldown, just as Dash would be normally. But that is how far you get. Now, the initial burst is where you're going to be seeing most of the potential there. But you still have that as a change to your movement toolkit. I know Displacer Beast was really fun, but they put all the blinks on the other specs that it feels better on, and not druids and not shamans. It happens. So, Photosynthesis, as you see right down there, that is your only new talent in any of these changes. This was added very recently. Photosynthesis reads, when your Life Bloom is on yourself, your rejuvenations will heal 30% faster. You can quite literally see this in the duration on the target, where it heals over 2.7 seconds. Put the rejuve on yourself. Instead of 2 seconds. So it does basically 30% haste scale your rejuvenation. And again, if you put your rejuvenation on your target, your periodic heals on them have a 4% chance to cause the Life Bloom to bloom. Now, that's 4% chance every second the Life Bloom ticks on itself. I'll let these hots fall off here real quick, because it can proc itself, or going back to the fact that you can have a ridiculous amount of heals over time on a target, obviously one less because no germination here. Photosynthesis can actually have quite a number of procs. Let's see if I can get an actual bloom here by itself. 4% chance each second, which may or may not happen while I'm recording, of course. Probably not. Nope. You're doing me dirty like that, Life Bloom? That's the ending bloom, obviously. And then I want to show this versus loading up your target with heals over time to see the difference in how many times it's going to bloom. Of course not. I'm not going to roll that for... There it goes. And one more. Wow. So now, in comparison, if you load your target up with heals over time, you're going to notice quite a bit difference. Maybe. It might not, right? It's only 4% per heal over time, but obviously when you stack up those heals over time, that's a forced bloom. It may or may not be a thing. The weird part about photosynthesis, there it goes, is that it can proc over and over and over and over and over again, or it might not proc. So the thought that this might have to be tuned up a little bit to be better could be a thing, because the life bloom on yourself is very good. The additional blanketing you can do and the hastening of your, I mean, there it goes, of your rejuvenation on multiple people is going to be really nice. But that's your new passive talent. Has some gameplay. And again, you put that on yourself, and you can blanket some even faster rejuvenations that are going to tick and give you a little more throughput. That is photosynthesis. How that compares with germination mostly comes down to a mana quandary, because rejuve gets kind of expensive to spam, and obviously double rejuving with germination is definitely a thing, versus photosynthesis just gives you extra blooms, which are totally mana free. All you have to do is just keep life bloom on your tank or life bloom on the priority target, and then hope that RNG is in your favor, I suppose. But that isn't a big deal depending on how the numbers get tuned here. This might need be like 6 to 7% to feel like it's a little more punchy, but that might be too strong. But obviously life bloom's only on one target anyway, so. But your only other talent adjustment here is Flourish. So Flourish is what you have now, but also the Essence of Gahanir has been rolled in baseline. So it's a 90-second cooldown where it extends the duration of all of your healer time effects on a friendly target within 60 yards on all of them by 8 seconds, and increases the rate of your healer over time effects by 100% for the same 8 seconds. Doubles their tick rate on all heals over time and adds 8 seconds to them. And yes, this works with Tranquility. So what I was trying to figure out is sort of the best way to do this, but I think if you have some rejuves rolling and then you trank, and then you want to blanket some more rejuves, you're going to have one of these out. You have to really get this close. There's that. You can put one of these. You probably want to get a wild growth out as well. You can extend the duration quite ridiculously, and you can see the combat log going wild there. I don't know what order of operations. It obviously depends on what you're doing, right? So if you're in a 5-man group and you have a big group burst of damage coming out, then you might want to just put out a few rejuves. Your life blooms out, wild growth it, and then hit your flourish. Or if you're in a raid group setting, obviously you can lay out your wild growth maybe in incarnation, because you get the extra targets on your wild growth, and then trank and then flourish. I'm not sure which order that is. I don't know if it's better to flourish after a wild growth or before, but those are little gameplay elements that you can play around with the new version of Flourish. And of course, these both compete with the very, very, very popular Germination. So that's up to you to decide. Spring Blossoms is here. Stonebark got moved. So now this competes, and then Inner Peace is the 60 seconds off to give you the 2-minute Trank, which again, going back to how powerful Trank is, very good. Spring Blossoms kind of falls off in raids though, and Stonebark obviously is very tank oriented or priority target, like a soaker or something like that. So Inner Peace might be a set and forget for raids. So now, Incarnation still sits here, Cultivation is still here, you saw Cenarian Ward, you saw Abundance earlier, all your other utility has been changed. Balance Affinity is still 5 yards if you're actually a caster. Feral Affinity now has a pretty huge auto attack amp on it, and because of the new auto attack damage scaling, and because Bleed scale with haste, Cat Weaving for the Restoration Druid may be a thing for doing damage versus Balance Affinity, but that could be up to you. And then Guardian Druid, if you are not a bear. You only get 25% stamina and the same 220% armor. And they have changed Frenzied Regeneration. I'll put in the spellbook here real quick for you. Frenzied Regen is only 25% of your maximum health over 5 seconds. This is a pretty huge hit to the overall survivability of the Resto Druid, because right now, as you know in the Mythic Plus meta, unless you don't, Holy Paladins, because they're extra HP and bubble, and their utility toolkit, of course, and Resto Druids, because they can go bear form, get a ton of armor, ton of HP, and then snapshot heal themselves from Frenzied Regen, are like the two kings of the Mythic Plus healer castle. That will hopefully change slightly. I'm not sure if Holy Paladin's getting knocked down at all, but I know that Holy Priest and Discipline Priest are both being brought up a little bit because they both have their own personal cooldown now, and they have a little bit better kit for Mythic Plus, possibly. Mistweaver Monk, I don't even know yet, because Mistweaver's been hilariously changed, so we'll get to that when we come to it. And then Resto Shaman is still fine, so we'll see if the Mythic Plus meta gets shaken up a little bit. But this is a pretty big one. Less HP on bear form and less healing comparatively to the version on live. But I wanted to bring up Prosperity here in a different healing style. So Prosperity takes your Swiftmend down by 3 more seconds to 22 seconds and gives you 2 charges. So then Soul of the Forest, which may or may not get used that often, now gets a different little bump in how powerful this is. Additionally, because you can either combine this with Germination a lot more easily now, because you can actually Prosperity, Soul of the Forest, both stacks of your Rejuvenation now. A lot easier, I guess, more often. These are both going to be a hugely more powerful rejuve. And that just comes down to the fact that right now, it's a really long cooldown to weave Swiftmends. But essentially with Prosperity on top of the 5 second, this may be more of a thing. But I think the only other option that I looked at that looked good was in a group play perspective, is having Prosperity up just for the extra heals on the move, of course, and the extra single target heals because of how tanks get kind of chunked by magic damage. But Soul of the Forest now gives you the amplified wild growth that you then flourish. So you have a 75% stronger wild growth on your entire 5-man squad or your 3-man squad in islands, and then you can flourish that. And that may feel very powerful now too. You don't need Prosperity for that, obviously, but Prosperity and Soul of the Forest obviously sync well together. So that may be a possibility if you enjoyed that play style. Not sure where that thrash came from there. But not sure where Abundance falls. Cenarian Ward obviously very strong because the Mastery scaling gets an extra hot. And of course that syncs up with your Tranquility, Flourish, Spring Blossoms, Cultivation, or Germination, all that good stuff. But that is the baseline kit update. Let me double check my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. That looks like everything. So the War Mode talent thing real quick. I guess, or the side note, is that the only thing that is on the global cooldown that's different for the Guardian Druid, obviously, is going to be your dash. Your Tiger Dash gets a form change. It's going to be Incarnation. So Broccoli form is on the GCD because you're form changing again. But I'm really curious to see what kind of stuff Broccoli form can do with the new Flourish, though, because the amount of additional hots you can spread and then flourish out is going to be pretty nice. I know Incarnation doesn't get used that often because of its long cooldown, and it mainly only gets used in fights where you're sort of lesser healing. You're taking out some heals in your Mythic Raid, like you're going down to 3 healers. You want an extra major cooldown, because Cultivation saw lots of play because it's really, really effective. But let me see here. The War Mode stuff. These are the same talents you have on live, almost all the same ones. Those like weird passive extra heals are just kind of thrown out. They're just gone. But the big thing about War Mode, you turn this on or off in your capital city, Stormwind or Orgrimmar. You get 15% more XP from killing monsters and completing quests, and you get additional rewards from doing world quests at max level. More honor for killing the opposite faction. If you go on a 10 kill streak without dying, you get upgraded to an assassin, giving you a 15% damage and healing amp. And then killing opposite faction assassins gives you more honor as well. And there are a whole bunch of the cosmetic mount rewards, all of that mumbo jumbo in the PvP reward tier. They've sort of stretched it out, and it's like 500 plus ranks now. But if war mode is your thing, this will all be activated in any open world scenario or obviously arenas and battlegrounds. So you can pick any 3 of these. And some of these compete, like on live right now, I do believe Focused Growth and Overgrowth both compete on the talent calculator. Let me double check that so I don't look like a complete moron. I do believe that's the case, right? Yeah, Focused Growth and Overgrowth compete. You only get to pick one of them. So you can now pick both. You can take the instantly applied, your Life Bloom, your Rejuve, your Wild Growth, and your Regrowth heal over time to the target on a 45-second instant cooldown. Right? You can take your Focused Growth, which is essentially old school Life Bloom, where you can stack 3 Life Blooms on a target and it goes up in 150% more healing. And that will probably stack with Photosynthesis procs though, because the blooms are going to be amped by 150%. So that's nice. You can, add in Nourish there too, so your regrowth automatically applies one of your missing hots to the target. So you can spam those regrowths. You can take another regrowth talent. You can grab your abundance and go with that, right? So you can sort of pick and choose which ones you want to put together now versus just like the 1-1-1-1. So all the other talents here are still there. Disentanglement makes your F-Low remove all snare effects from friendly targets when it heals. Revitalize is the rejuvenation, grants 2 charges of Revitalize, which brings me back to one other thing I forgot to say actually, is that your Living Seed passive has been also removed, so Revitalize sort of gives that back a bit. Revitalize heals the target for an amount after taking a melee critical strike and increases the duration of Rejuve by a flat amount of 3 seconds, reduced by haste, of course. So you don't have Living Seed anymore because they removed the whole weird crit nonsense with Regrowth, but you can sort of get that back if you're doing open world PvP stuff with Revitalize. Entangling Bark is that Iron Bark will grant the target Nature's Grasp, which roots the first 2 melee attackers for 8 seconds to attack the target. You get Thorns, which reflects up to 5% damage back worth of their total health and nature damage to the attackers, and also has the Snare. You can do Deep Roots, so the amount of damage that required to cancel your Entangling Roots doubles. Encroaching Vines, when your Entangling Roots is removed, dispelled, or ends, it reduces the target's physical damage by 25% for 4 seconds. You have Early Spring to make Wild Growth instant. Cyclone, Druid Banish, Druid of the Claw, which is totally BIS for any flag carrying shenanigans in any battleground we know of, or any flag capture points where you just turret and sit on the flag capture and hop the crap out of yourself with Overgrowth and then go back into bear form. So it cuts the critical hit chance against you by 10%, and in addition, when you're hit by an attack, now while in bear form, you have a 10% chance to cast Rejuve on yourself for free. So you can take all of these super defensive talents that had competing points, right? So you can take Thorns and Druid of the Claw and just sit on a flag. Reflect damage, snare everything, keep yourself healed, pop out, Overgrowth, pop back into bear form. You can pick all of these things for all the world content you can, and of course you can pick and choose now for the PvP as well. And arenas, if that is your cup of tea. But again, overall war mode is for fighting across islands, right? So it's the end game, sort of, you go to the other island and you do world quests there, and you also engage in world PvP, if you want to. Or, depending on if you want to risk it, you level with it, I won't be, just for the extra benefits to level faster. So I just can't do it on stream because I'll get stream sniped and camped or something ridiculous, right? So that will be unfortunate. But that is the Restoration Druid. I did put down here that there's possible build options for different group sizes, mostly because of the Trank changes, the Flourish change, maybe even Prosperity, Soul of the Forest changes. Hopefully it's not just take Germination and spam Rejuve all day, because that's how you've already been playing the game. But that is the Restoration Druid. Thank you all very much for listening to my rambles. Of course, if you want to have a chance to win a beta key, there are a whole bunch of beta key giveaways going on, but notably on my Twitter, linked down below in the description box if you want to go follow me over on Twitter for when I go live. Live shows that are coming up. We have some MDI specials on the horizon, and of course the live shows that are going to be the main bread and butter when we get into BFA, all the interview shows on every Sunday. So go check out my Twitter if you'd like to keep up to date with all of that. And all of my other updates and things. I am rather easy to get in contact with on Twitter if you have any questions as well, or you want to poke me about something. Please feel free to do so. But until then, I will see you all in the next Battle for Azeroth Second Pass video.